to piano lesson number 4. Woohoo! So I hope you guys have been practicing lots. So this lesson is going to be about some theory behind music, because we need to know how to count out notes, and you guys are going to have to learn how to read sheet music. So before we can learn how to read the notes off the page, first we have to be able to read what the notes even mean. So I've taught you guys a little bit about the piano, and I will be getting back to the piano in maybe 2 or 3 videos from now. But we have to sort of catch up with a little bit of the theory behind all this. And don't worry, theory is just a scary word for like reading. So if you guys want to learn how to read music so that you guys can learn your own songs, this is what this is all for. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys about something called time signatures, which are simple. They're very easy. I'm only going to be showing you the 4/4 signature and the 3/4 signature, and maybe the 2/4 signature as well. So I'll go over those, and it's not going to be that complicated. And then I'm going to show you what different types of note values are. So stay tuned, or keep watching if that interests you. Okay, let's get right into it. So here we go. So the first thing I want to show you guys is what the different notes are called. Now there's they're pretty easy. Like, I mean, we're starting out with something called a whole note. And what basically these do is every time you have to play a key, it has an assigned time or value for how long it has to be held for. So when you have to play a key, it has to go for a certain length of time. So we use notes to figure out how long they go for. So we have different kinds of notes. So the first note we have here is the biggest type of value of a note. It's called a whole note. And it basically is a circle. That's all it is. It's a circle. It's a circle on the music. That's all it is. It's a span right there. Whole note. On sheet music, it looks more like an oval. It's an oval shape, but it's still a circle. Okay, so that's it. A whole note is a circle. Now, it is represented by the number 1 because it's one whole thing. Okay. So a whole note is a circle. Now, how much harder is it going to get when we go to the half note? Well, it's pretty easy, because we've got a circle with a stick. That's how easy it is. A half note looks like a circle with a stick, or the same oval shape, a note with a stick going up and down. So all you do to change a whole note to a half note is you add the stick on it, or it's called a stem. That's the actual technical definition, is a stem. Okay, now whenever you see these half notes or other notes, they're going to have stems, and sometimes they're going to be going up, and sometimes like this, and sometimes they're going to be going down. And I wouldn't worry about it too much, because all that means, it has to do with the placement of the note on the staff. It's just so that the stem doesn't get in the way of other music, and later on it has to do with voice leading and stuff like that, but you don't have to worry about that. Not voice leading, voices. But anyway, okay, so this is a half note. It's got a circle with a stick, and it's usually represented by the number 2. So that's sort of like its signature. It's 2 because a half can be split into 2 parts. Pretty simple, right? Okay, so hopefully you're following me right now. So whole note is a circle, half note is a circle with a stick. Okay, now quarter note. We can't add another stick onto it, so what do we have to do? Let's fill the circle in. So the quarter note is a circle with a stick that's filled in. Pretty hard, huh? So it's a circle with a stick filled in. And this is called a quarter note. And it is usually represented by the number 4. That's its signature. Okay? So a quarter note is 4, half note is 2, whole note is 1. So a whole note, a circle, half note, circle with a stick, quarter note, circle with a stick that's filled in. And that's a quarter note. Okay? Don't worry about all the values and everything yet, because I'll get on to explaining how that all works. Okay, now, the next thing is an 8th note. So, an 8th note is a circle with a stick that's filled in. What are we going to do? Oh, let's add something that goes down off the side. Now, this isn't an exactly true representation of how it looks in real sheet music because obviously I've drawn this, but it's sort of an approximation. So it has kind of like a little stem or a flag or a tail. They usually call it, it's not a stem, it would be a flag or a tail. That's usually what they call it. So it has this little thing coming down. Now, you've probably seen notes like this before. Like that, right? Now what that actually is it's just 2 eighth notes combined, 2 eighth notes together, and they're joining the stem across. So without this, if you take this away, that is 2 quarter notes because it's a circle with a stem or with a stick that's filled in. Then you add the thing on top, which is the flag or whatever. So say you have your flag right there, you have your 2 quarter notes, and then say you took this one away, right? Then this little floppy flag is like, woo, and it goes down and just flops down like that because it has nothing to prop it up. So that's a way you can think of those eighth notes. Okay, so those are the names of them and that's what they look like. So I want you to make sure you get that in your head. Now, each one of these notes has a specific value. And how you get the value is actually pretty simple. It's sort of like a game of cups. You know when they have those, or not cups, or you know when they've got like the big circular, the balls or whatever, and then there's like this huge ball, and then inside the huge ball is like a smaller ball and a smaller and a smaller and smaller, right? So we have sort of a way to do this. Basically, a whole note is twice the size of a half note. So 2 half notes have to make up 1 whole note. That's how it works. And 2 quarter notes equal 1 half note. So 2 quarter notes or 1 half note. Now, so if there's 2 quarter notes in this 1 half note and then we have 2 half notes, how many whole notes do we have? I mean, how many quarter notes are in 1 whole note? 4. Because if you cut, say you have an orange, right, and you cut it into 4 quarters. This should be very, very obvious to you. So if you cut it into 4 quarters, right, this whole note could represent an orange. So a quarter note is going to take 4 spaces of that whole note. That's why it's a quarter note. Okay? Now, eighth note, you might have guessed, is twice the value, or, you know, there's 2 eighth notes and 1 quarter note. So that's pretty much how it works. So there's 8 eighth notes in 1 whole note. And it keeps doubling. It actually goes on and on. All you do after that is you don't change it. You just keep adding more flags on or whatever. And you'll add another one on. It'll be a 16th note, another one a 32nd note, another it goes to a 64th, and another. Then you've got a 128th note. But you're probably not going to have to worry about that, and up until like the more advanced grades you won't see anything past a 16th note. And we're not even going to get into that because you won't see that for a while. So it's all pretty, these are the basic rhythms. You probably won't even see an 8th note for quite a while too. Okay, so that's them. Now, there is a little chart here that I've drawn out, and I have a pyramid kind of effect here, where I have a whole note up at the top, and then I have 2 lines going down, and I have a half note and a half note. So that shows that these 2 half notes have to go into this 1 whole note. Then, for this whole note here, I have 2 things going out, and I have a quarter note and a quarter note. So these 2 quarter notes go into this 1 half note. And then this half note has 2 quarter notes coming out of it. So if we take, so it's showing basically how many quarter notes are in this whole note, or how many quarter notes are in this half note. So in this whole note, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter notes. Because in each of these half notes, there has to be 2 quarter notes. So it can sort of boggle the mind a little bit. When you're first starting out, I have some students that when they first see this, they're like, but then once you get to this one exercise, it'll all start to make sense. Once you do it, you'll understand it. Okay, and then down at the bottom we have, 8 eighth notes. And I wasn't going to go to the trouble of drawing 16th notes or whatever. Because if if you went all the way down to 128th notes, you would literally have to draw 128th notes all across here to fill out the pyramid. And yeah, no, that's not going to happen. You get the point, and that's the whole point of it. Okay, so now what I might do is I might take a picture of this little diagram and then put it in a still frame in between these segments so you can take a closer look at this. Okay? Alright, so that's it for for these note values. Now let's go on to the next step. Okay guys, now the next thing we're going to learn is something called a time signature. Now this is sort of like the law that governs what you're doing. So it's like the time law that governs the piece. So just like a piece, time is always moving forward. You're like da 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 da. Now if time stopped, it'd be like da 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 da. Right? Time has to keep going for the piece to keep going. So they needed a way to basically figure out how to keep the beat steady so people would come in at the right times and you'd come in properly. So what you have to do actually is you actually have to count. So a time signature is there to tell you what number to count up to and which note is going to get the one beat. So, because if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, right? You're counting. So what you need to do is you have to know, well, what number am I going to be counting up to? Like what's the feel of the piece? I'll explain it later on. And what note am I going to count 1 for? Am I going to count a whole note for 1? Every time I see a whole note, am I going to go 1? Right? Or is that going to be for a half note or a quarter note or whatever? Okay, so a time signature, as you can see right here, hopefully, looks like this. It says time signature, and we have a top number and a bottom number. Okay? The top number, I want you guys to ask yourself this question. How many beats per bar? If you can ask yourself this question, the answer is right in front of you. That's how simple it is. How many beats per bar? 4. A simplified version would be how many? 4. So it's just how many beats per bar, or how many? There's 4. 4 beats per bar. Whatever the top number is whatever it's going to be. So that can be, this changes quite a bit. That top number changes quite often. The bottom number is a little bit different, and it tells you what note is going to be one beat. Now, the most common thing, pretty much probably about 90% of the time, you're going to see 4 on the bottom. So 4 is almost always on the bottom. And you probably won't see anything but 4 for a long time. You might see 8 once or twice, and you might see 2 once or twice, but you probably won't ever see anything else other than that. So the bottom number is almost always 4. So it's telling you what note is one beat. Okay, so 4. Now do you remember when I was talking about whole notes, half notes, and quarter notes? I said 4 was the number that we associate with a quarter note because it's into 4 quarters, right? So because we see 4 here, what note should we assume is going to be one beat? Dun, dun, dun. It's actually a quarter note, which I bet you guys have probably guessed. It's pretty simple, huh? So a quarter note is basically one beat. So whenever we see a quarter note, we're going to count 1. So if there's 2 quarter notes in one half note, that means we have to count 1, 2, because there's 2 quarter notes inside that half note. And if there's 4 quarter notes inside a whole note, we have to count 1, 2, 3, 4 inside a whole note, because there's those little 4 things. Think of them living inside the whole note there. You have to count each 4 of them. It's like a big house with family of 4 or something like that. Okay. So, my little example down here, this is the example that we're going to use. So it's written in 4/4 time. So it has to go to 4 beats. Now a bar, I should probably explain what a bar is. A bar is basically a set amount of time. It's sort of like you go up to a certain bar length and then you have to start a new bar. And a new bar and a new bar. It's sort of a way of dividing up the piece into small sections so that you can be like, okay, go to bar 43 and play to bar 46. So it's a way of being able to point to a certain piece of music and instead of just being like, okay, start from that note on line something of page 5. It's a really precise way of saying where to start. And it also helps you keep track of how many beats you've gone so that things can be rhythmic. Because you'll hear drum beats go dun 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 dun, right? Or dun 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 dun, and then you'll hear harder, more complex drum beats, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of complex drum beats. But they're all based off a repeating pattern, and that repeating pattern is inside a bar. So a bar repeats itself like with a rhythmic pattern like that. So it's a way of keeping track of a small group. So a bar looks like this. It's one line. Sort of like a jail cell bar. Have you guys ever been to jail? I haven't. And I hope I'd never go to jail. Alright. Okay, so this is a bar. And it shows you that this is the end of the bar, or the section here. So the time signature is always at the start because it has to tell you what time signature it's in. It's sort of like laying down the law. So there's 4 beats per bar, and a quarter note receives 1 beat. So look at here, I've drawn 4 quarter notes. So 1 quarter note, 2 quarter notes, 3 quarter note, 4 quarter note. So how I would clap this would be like this. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. The claps happen on the notes. And I'm counting out steadily. So that's the first bar. I go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can try that as well. Okay, now this bar is finished. So typically you play the bar once and you go to the next bar seamlessly. There's no stopping at the bar or anything. You're not like, ooh, you're a shiny bar, I'm going to touch you and polish you up and everything. No, you just keep going. Okay, so you go past the bar into the next bar. Sometimes they're also referred as measures. So this could be one measure, that could be the second measure. So bar 1, bar 2, measure 1, measure 2. It's interchangeable. So don't get mixed up when someone says, hey, play measure 1 for me, or play bar 3 for me. It's the exact same thing. They're just referring to different terminology. It actually makes absolutely no difference. Okay? Alright. So now we're going into bar 2, or measure 2. And I've drawn a half note here. So the half note is going to sort of show you how you would clap that differently. So a half note has to be held for 2 beats because it has 2 half notes sticking inside it because it's twice its value. So this is going to sound like 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So this half note gets 2 counts. So let's start from here and go all the way to the end. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you clap that. So if you're playing that on the piano, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how you get rhythm. That is how rhythm is broken down. It's a very simple, basic analysis of it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this once I've stopped this, and I'm going to write out a couple more exercises using different time signatures. And we can clap through them together. And you can use that as homework to sort of get your groove on with the rhythm. Okay, so just give me a second here. Alright guys, so I've drawn out a couple more exercises. From the top here we have 4-4. Now the other ones the main ones that we're going to use, that you'll probably be seeing, it's 4-4, 3-4, and 2-4. Now don't get all confused about this, it's not that big of a deal really. Because as you remember, the top number just tells you how many beats. So you're just going to have less beats in these bars. So this bar has 3 beats. And this bar has 2 beats. So we're going to go over these. And the first one up here, it has a quarter note, and half note. So this is going to get clapped like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. That'd be a faster way of clapping it. Okay? So that's this bar. Now this bar here, this one's a little bit tricky. So as you remember, we had 8th notes. Now you need 2 8th notes to equal 1 quarter note. So I'm fitting 2 8th notes in this one space here. So what we have to do is we have to clap twice on 3 here. So we're going to clap this like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's try that again. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and it has to sound steady. You don't want this. 1, 2, 3, 4, because that isn't even. It has to be 3, 4, 3, 4. It has to be very steady. Now, if you can't get it steady, this is something you can do to make it more steady. You can add these little markers, because all the things you're saying are just little checkpoints to keep you on track. So let's add these in. So these are the halfway check marks of that beat. So if we do this, the little pluses are and. So I go 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. Now that's how the thing is working there. So the 3 goes with the first 8th note and the and goes with the second. Now these ones are just getting held over, so it's sort of like it's invisible. You just keep holding it through the clapping. So it's 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and. And that's how that works. Now you can switch to that at any time. It's really up to your choice, but if you're not doing a lot of 8th notes, there's really no point to putting it there. It's just going to slow it down and there's more to say. Okay, so then the next bar is one big whole note there, and that takes up 4 counts. So we have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's this bar here, and then we have a half note here and a half note here. So each one of those gets 2 counts. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's how that goes. So from here to here, let's hear it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you notice I put the ands in through the whole line. I did that because it's really awkward to switch into ands in the middle of something. And since I was going to do it here, I decided I'd just do it through the whole thing. I could have done it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would have been another way to do it. Okay, so that's the 4-4 one. Now, with 3-4, it's 3 beats per bar. So we just count up to 3, and that's it. Now I've got a little funky thing here, and I'm going to explain that when I get there, but okay, so this, we have a quarter note and a half note, so it just goes 1, 2, 3. That's it. Now, when you're in 3-4 time, you have to give it more of a different feel. It's called compound time, and I'll explain it later, but it has a sort of moving forward feel, like a waltz, like da dun 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 dun. So yeah, that's a waltz for you. I can't waltz, but I know what it's supposed to, it goes with a waltz pattern. So the downbeat is on the 1, and then the next 2 are weak beats. So it goes da dun dun da dun dun da dun dun, like that. That's the 1. Dun 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 da dun dun. So you go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Whew. That little waltzing got me kind of out of breath. Isn't that sad? It's sort of late. I'm tired from the whole day. Okay. So I clapped through this. Now you're probably wondering, okay, what is this? It's a half note, but there's some weird little dot thing here. Now these are not two notes. This and this are not separate. These are actually together. This half note and this dot go together and they create what's called a, ready? Dotted half note. Wasn't that original? So a dotted half note. I didn't tell you about this before because it wasn't, I guess I could have, but I didn't. Anyway, let's just throw you off. A dotted half note, whenever you add a dot to something, you can add a dot to any note. And when you add a dot, it's like taking the note's value and then adding 50% of the value to it. So the note that originally would be there is worth 150% of its value, so 1.5. So in easy terms, think of it like this. There's one quarter note and another quarter note in here. So what's half of 2 quarter notes? 1 quarter note. So we're going to add another quarter note into those 2 quarter notes. So we add 50% to that. So 1 quarter note and 1 quarter note plus another quarter note is 3 quarter notes. And that equals 1, 2, 3. 3 beats. And that goes for the whole bar. Okay? So you just clap 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Now, later on you'll get into dotted 8 quarter notes, and that would be worth 1.5 beats. But don't worry about it for now. Okay, so now the last one we have is 2, 4. So I have a half note here, and we just go 1, 2. And then the next bar goes 1, 2. You just count up to 2. So it's just 1, 2, 1, 2. Pretty easy. So those are those. I'll take a picture of it and I'll stop it. I'll put it in the video and then you can get a nice clear picture of what it's all going to look like. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. I'll probably do an update on more advanced rhythms and maybe a video too. The next video is going to deal on music theory. So a somewhat more music theory on how to read notes though. Because now you have the notes of how you're supposed to play them in rhythm. Now, and you already know what the notes are on the piano, so now that you have those two, now we can finally put them together and assign them to some sheet music. Cool, huh? So those are the steps that we have to do. So you're well on your way to being able to play sheet music off the page. So this is a good foundation. Okay, so take care, keep practicing. I do lots of this clapping. You need to get your rhythm down. Rhythm is the most important thing in music. So you need to have a steady beat. The steadiness comes from the mouth and not from the clapping. The clapping falls on this where you say. So what you're saying is those numbers. So those numbers have to be steady. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. That has to be steady and then the claps just fall on the numbers. Okay? Well, take care. See you guys later.